Hi everybody, this is David T from Field Sports Scotland and welcome to another episode of FSS Chatback, my weekly podcast where I talk about things hunting related, shooting related, ecology related, any new licenses that are coming out, anything that affects the world of the outdoors actually. I have access to quite an abundance of different sources, so I can pretty much talk about anything in regards to the outdoors, providing it's not things like climbing, because I can't tie a knot I have no idea. Anyway, right, so down to this week. What have I been up to this week? I have been, increasing my culls at the moment, shooting a lot of male deer because we don't have a male deer season anymore, and the estate that I work for and the properties I work on require all year round culling of male deer. So it's no change for me in that sense. This happens every year. We always have a kind of lull, early spring, mid-spring, where I don't see a lot of male deer for some reason. They're just hiding or they're away looking to get out of the flies. I don't know. But now they're starting to show more and they're feeding more. They're going to start to feed heavy now that their antlers are starting to come in. Had a few bucks as well, some nice bucks showing, which is great. But the kind of fizz, like I said in one of my podcasts, the fizz of the seasons, because at the moment used to be that genuinely everybody, except for myself under license, but we would tend to just, even those with a license would tend to ignore the odd one or two stags here and there at this time of year and just wait to the 1st of July. And we would just concentrate on the bucks. But at the moment, with no male season, there is, to be honest, there's no excitement in regards to seasons coming and things like that. So I've had a few guests book. I've got quite a few guests booked for some of my private stuff in the next couple of months, which is great. So I've been catching up with that and really just been fighting the weather because, as you probably have seen, and it's been the same all over the country, it's been wet, very, very wet. And not even humid, not even warm like you would expect at this time of year. In fact, when I was younger, we talked about this the other night there. We've had snow in June before, so it's not unusual to be cold. We are up at like 20 degrees today, which is very warm, considering for the last week we have been down in low single figures. Last night it dropped down to 2 degrees, so it was pretty nippy last night. And I was out and I got a Sika stag, which is great. What are we going to talk about today? Right, so today I am going to talk about first of all, the new legislation in regards to grouse moor licensing and how it really affects and opens the doors. Now, on the 30th of April, the new licenses came in on to regulate grouse moors. So if you are a grouse moor owner, for it to operate as a commercial grouse moor, you have to apply for a license. Now, the licenses were originally designed to prevent against raptor persecution. And for those for the uninitiated and are wondering why this is such a big thing in regards to raptor persecution, it's because grouse moors over the years have been blamed for the reduction in raptors, hen harriers, eagles, peregrines, ospreys even, and various others, because obviously those raptors do prey on grouse and the commercial viability of grouse and some of the larger moors. But the problem before was when someone was caught doing actual raptor persecution, it usually was the gamekeeper or the estate staff that got prosecuted for it. Rarely did you ever get a estate owner or even factor or estate management team get into trouble for it. It was usually down or blamed to the individual keeper, which meant that that keeper, if they didn't do a jail sentence or get a fine, they would have lost their jobs as well. Even if, and I've been there, trust me, I have been there when owners have mentioned a few things that might prompt a keeper to do something that they don't really want to do. And I'm not meaning in Raptors, because I've never witnessed that conversation, but other things, Moor burning in places where they probably shouldn't have Moor burned and stuff like that. So this new legislation actually covers quite a lot. So I'm going to spend a couple of minutes and I'll go through what the changes are. And I might analyse some of it and tell you what it actually means. Because remember, this opens doors. Remember, this was a consultation, and Scottish gamekeepers thought, oh, well, it's not going to be as heavy. There was huge amounts of work went into this. It was, I think, I'll look at the bits here, is 7 years review, several consultations, a scrutiny by 3 committees, and 15 evidence sessions and 300 plus amendments and 3 votes for this. And I can guarantee you some of it was still just sneaked in and people didn't realise what they were getting. But I'm not saying I'm against or for grouse licensing. It's good. Whatever protects gamekeepers in the long run is good, because this means that if there is a problem, SSPCA or wildlife crimes, or somebody finds that there's a problem on that estate, or an insinuation of the problem, then the license can be revoked, and then it's the estate's responsibility. This is the first time it's been the actual estate's responsibility for the actions of the estate staff. So this is actually a big deal. Unlike what they're consulting with in regards to the deer management nature restoration orders, is that it won't necessarily be the estate's responsibility or the ground owner's responsibility. It'll be up to the individual deer manager if they are not providing the culls that are required from them. So we'll go into that in a little bit, but that makes it a little bit confusing. But we'll talk about the grouse licensing just now. So here's what the grouse licensing entails. Trap training will be required for each trap type practitioner uses, and all operators will require a trap license. So obviously there's a snaring ban, so you won't be allowed to snare. But if you're using fen traps, larson traps, cage traps, that sort of stuff, fen traps, I think certain ones are banned now as well. I've been out of the loop in regards to keeping that side of things for a while, because I haven't done any trapping for at least 5-6 years. So I'm out of the loop in regards to the full legislation on what you can and what you can't use. I think anything up to fen 3 you can use, but then I think fen 4, 5s and 6s you can't use. They're a lot bigger traps. Don't give me grief in the comments about the trapping side of things, because I don't trap very often, and I haven't snared and fox snared in a very long time since the legislation came in. The registration came in. I did apply for a snaring license many years ago. I got it, but having an ID and tag all your snares and stuff like that became an absolute pest. I ended up just pulling the lot of them. They weren't doing me any benefit either. I was getting, to be honest, I was getting the odd 1 or 2 foxes, but I was shooting more than what I was catching in the snares, to be honest. Snaring works when you know that there's a den system, or if you're working midden systems and stuff like that. Like when you're working farmland, it's not always easy to make a midden or anything like that, or find a place to do something like that without maybe causing problems to livestock. And there is always that risk of infection when you're doing bait sites and stuff like that for livestock. Anyway, so back to this. Trap training will be required for each trap type a practitioner uses, and all operators will require a trap license, right? So that's individual gamekeepers, underkeepers, junior keepers, anybody who is rebaiting a trap will all have to go through their trap license. a personal ID of the license holder will have to be placed on all traps set. I'm not entirely sure if that is viable. I'm not entirely sure what that entails. Does that mean that you have to put some sort of ID card, or you're given a registration number and you tag that like we used to do with the snares? But every trap that you set has to have your ID, which means if the head keeper set it and the underkeeper maintains it and the junior keeper, trainee keeper or apprentice keeper also baits it, all three of those IDs must be on that trap. That's what I presume. Tampering, disarming, or destroying a trap by third parties. Used to get this a lot when I was on the grouse estates. You get folk that'll set off your fen traps, or they'll damage your fen traps, or deliberately cut holes in your cage traps or your larson traps. Or if you had a decoy in there, letting your decoy out, that's quite a common one. Just leaving the gates open was a common one. So that's classed as tampering. Is now a specific criminal offence, which is good in a way because it should be that nobody should be touching your traps once they're set. To be fair, it is against the right to roam anyway, or what the right to free access, or whatever you want to call that legislation. You are allowed to roam over somebody's property, but you're not allowed to interfere with their day-to-day work. So if you stop someone, for instance, if you're anti-shooting and you stop someone from shooting game birds or doing pest control or whatever on their property, then they can then they're breaking the law, basically. So we get it in the woods sometimes where you'll get dog walkers who will stop deer stalkers and have a go at them for shooting deer. They've got real no knowledge of what's actually going on, but in fact that dog walker even stopping the stalkers in that way is actually illegal. I've not heard any prosecutions for it, but it is actually illegal. So that's become a specific offence for tampering with traps. Licenses will be required to shoot grouse, right? So we've got that part. So each estate will have to apply for a commercial license for shooting grouse. Probably pay for the license too. I don't know what the cost is because I don't run a grouse estate. Originally, these licenses were planned for to be renewed yearly, but now it's gone along the same as firearms legislation where they want to renew every 5 years. So that's a 5-yearly thing. So that makes it difficult in a way for grouse estates, because what happens if there's a couple of years where you're just not going to shoot grouse? And some estates have had problems being able to get the right numbers up to do grouse, to do any grouse days. And that in itself will prolong the stress upon the grouse keepering community, prolong the stress for the estates themselves in regard to monetary values and monetary factors. If they have a couple of poor years, some of the keepers might feel a little bit stressed about it. So just bear that in mind. Should a license be suspended or revoked by Nature Scot, there is an ability for this to be appealed at a sheriff court if the license holder believes the decision is not correct. So, say SSPCA came up because there was a report you had a cow wandering about with a dodgy leg, and that happens. In fact, it's happened with neighbouring crofts and stuff like that with me on the estate that I work, and they basically say, "Oh, wait a minute, there's a trap there that doesn't have an ID on it." Now, that's giving them permission just because they're on the ground looking at a live animal. It actually doesn't stop them from noticing a few other things while they're there. So if they pick up something, they can pretty much report it. So if they can report it, then you can actually get your license suspended. So here's a scenario for you in that, right? You have a tenant farmer, it's not the best, right? And which happens, he's older or whatever, and he's a little bit slow in dealing with certain things. And he's got a lame cow, or he's got a sheep that hasn't been shorn properly. It's just one that's been missed on the gather, and it's come down, and it's a roasting hot day, and it's got wool hanging off it. And SSPCA gets called by some nosy neighbour. You've got that scenario. Got an older tenant farmer who's a little bit slower in getting things done. He's going to get stuff done, but he was maybe a little late picking up this sheep, or he's been hoping that the cow's going to get better in itself without getting the vet involved or whatever. Or even if he's done everything right and the vet said, look, it's going to come right in a couple of days, right? It doesn't stop a member of the public to say, picking up the phone to SSPCA, and then the SSPCA have to make the decision to send somebody out there and find out what is actually going on. While they're out there, they're walking across a field, and there's a larceny trap sitting in the field, which is hugely possible, right? And that SSPCA guy noticed that the larceny trap's not set, but there's no ID on it. Now, or it is set, but there's no decoy in it. But there's no ID on it. It could be an old larceny trap that you haven't used in a couple of years. It's never caught anything. You forgot all about it even. Or you've just thought, oh, it'll be fine, I'll get it another day or whatever. But there's no ID tag on it. SSPCA then will have the powers to put forward a complaint against you to Nature Scott. And in doing so, you're a few days before the glorious 12th, and suddenly Nature Scott pulls your revokes or suspends your grouse license. You have a whole season booked full of guests. There goes your season, just because of one little mistake. So that's how serious that can be, and it's a very plausible thing to do. And I am going to guarantee you that aunties will know this. The anti-shooting community will know this, and they will do silly things like plant traps and, they like to disrupt. They'll damage equipment, they'll damage traps, they'll damage, and they don't care about the consequences, because it's the more convictions they've got against them, because they were fighting. I'm putting them in exclamation marks, against the shooting community, the higher regard they get within their community. So they don't care about what the lengths that they're going to do to get you to get an estate into trouble, to get their license banned. And that's the problem with these licenses. Anyway, SSPCA can now provide evidence of wildlife crime to the police if they find such evidence while entering a property to attend a live animal in distress, i.e. using their existing powers. It does not confer new entry powers yet. There is consultation with the Deer Management Nature Restoration Orders that SSPCA will get increased powers. So just bear that in mind. Muir burn will require training and a license. So back in the day, we all got on the grouse estates. We all got taught how to muir burn, to do random burning and stuff like that. Sorry, not random burning. Growth stage burning. Sorry, that's the words I was looking for. Growth stage burning. Sorry, my brain is in a world of its own at the minute. Where you pick a period. You look at the length of the heather, right? I want to burn that. Say it's rank heather. It's no use for anything, even nesting. So you'll burn that side of things, and you'll burn that into a burn that you maybe did 2 years ago. For those who don't know anything about grouse estate, when you see those nice strips on the hill and stuff like that, that's muir burn. That's man-made. That's not natural. And that's just different ages of heather. You need different lengths for feeding, territories, nesting, and various other reasons for it. It doesn't just benefit red grouse, it also benefits livestock as well. It also benefits like nesting wading bird, like spring nesting birds or land nesting birds, and your wading birds that come in the springtime, like your waders, your curlews, your plovers, that sort of stuff. It really does increase the habitat biodiversity for bird life and insect life as well. It allows reptiles to be able to sun more, take the heat more in the summertime and things like that, because they're not constantly being shaded in rank heather. It also stops the spread of diseases like lipin ill, because you can get tick spread diseases and whatever, so it reduces the number of ticks on the hill as well. And it reduces the fire risk, massive fire risk. As we all know, we've had major problems with fires over the last few years, and the less heather out there, the less likely it's going to burn. So managed burning and muir burning is pretty much an essential part, not just in grouse moor management, but on various types of habitat management. I do kind of smile a little inside when I speak to some rewilders when they talk about leaving moorlands for nesting birds and stuff like that. When you look out in the moorling, it's got rank heather, and it's tick infested, and there's an abundance of predators out there as well that just enjoy that environment, because that's perfect hunting environment for them, so they can cowl and hide and sneak about the place without being noticed by anything. So there is various reasons why there's muir burn. We're not going to get into that today. If anybody's interested, I will do another podcast on it. So your training and licensing is required now. Everybody who works on a grouse estate that's got anything to do with muir burn always got training anyway. Muir burn season has changed. It now runs from the 15th of September to the 31st of March. There remains an ability applied to Nature Scot to burn outside this for specific purposes, such as wildfire mitigation and restoring the natural environment. Doubt those licenses. It's like the badger licenses. Apparently you can get a badger license in Scotland. I haven't met one or met anybody. I personally haven't been approved one. I've had major problems with badgers on many of the properties I manage, and I've had problem badgers who have taken lambs, etc. I have never been able to get a license. It's probably going to be one of those licenses that there'll be so many ways that they can refuse it that it's not even worth applying for. Hair licenses is another one. Hair licenses can be really problematic, because you have to tell them exactly how many hares you want to kill. But before you know that, before you know how many hares you've got to kill, you have to count them, which anybody will tell you. When you've finally got a problem with hares, you can't tell how many hares you've got all the time. Then you're probably only going to get granted for 50% of what you've asked. So there's a minefield in it, so you just wait to the season and try and shoot them in the season. So that I can see a problem with anybody getting those licenses. That'd be nice to hear if somebody does get a license for out-of-season muir burning. Muir burn licenses for peatland and non-peatland are treated differently, with greater restrictions placed on what can be done under license if the ground is classed as peatland. So you're less likely to get a license for muir burn if you've got heavy peat, which is going to be very difficult for some grouse estates, actually. Trust me. The definition of peatland is now ground with a layer of peat with thickness of more than 40 centimetres. It used to be 50 centimetres. So that's reduced by 10 centimetres. It might not sound a lot, but it could mean that a certain part of your ground might not get a muir burn licence, which in the end might not be good for grouse. Well, it's all against the grouse estates right now. The bill will be reviewed every 5 years as part of the review. A report on the conservation status of eagle, harrier, peregrine and merlin will be laid before Parliament. This is an ability for other birds to be monitored and reported on if required. Although this licence applies specifically to grouse, there is an ability for Scottish Parliament to add other game birds to the licence in future. The Minister said this would only happen where the government has a robust evidence that raptor persecution is in association with other types of game bird management. Right, so we get to the end of that now. The last 5 minutes I'll talk about the nitty-gritty of that and what it means for everybody else. Well, what it actually means is that it's going to be harder for grouse moors to operate. It also means that grouse moors are taking the whole blame for raptor persecution when I actually know that some of the persecution is done by kind of rogue guys who have got little pheasant shoots here and there that are not really registered as commercial pheasant shoots. They've got little plots of woodland that have a few pheasants in them, and they like to get a bit of coinage from it. And they see a big bird in the sky, and they worry it's going to catch their pheasants. Now, anybody in the trade who knows anything about old school raptor persecution and stuff like that did happen on grouse moors, 60s, 70s, 80s, even to the start of the 90s. It was a kind of thing, I'm not going to deny it, and any keeper that does deny it, then they're a liar. Basically, they're a liar. It was kind of too widespread. It is not so widespread now. The new breed of keepers that have come up through from the late 90s straight through into now, in the last 25, 30 years, they have no interest in raptor persecution. In fact, it's more of it's a nice thing to see eagles and peregrines and hen harriers and stuff like that. In fact, they give nests a wide berth. It's the same with us in the forestry in regards to I've got 3 forests that I work on that have osprey and eagles and various other things coming in. To be fair, they don't do us any harm anyway, and we basically feed them. So it's with the leftover parts from deer. So I've got to say that side of things, it's unfair that the grouse estates are getting so much bad publicity over this and getting the blame for everything when there is other factors involved. Farmers are bad for it as well. Farmers are very bad for just shooting at something because it's annoying them or because they feel it's causing them a bit of problems. So you just got to bear that in mind. But there is this fact that this now opens up the shooting community and the outdoor community for being played upon by the anti-shooting community, because the fact of the matter is there is a lot of antis out there that will stop at nothing to make sure that there's no more recreational shooting in the UK, let alone Scotland, in the world. The other thing about it is there's other legislation that is being talked about, not just in the Scottish Government, but talking about in Westminster as well. And obviously that's non-SNP, so you can't just blame the SNP for this. They're talking about bans on pheasant imports and partridge and stuff like that. They're talking about further legislation for that type, for pheasants and partridges and other game birds, not just grouse. So it's a full-on attack, really, by all parties. We're not just talking about SNP or the Greens. We're talking about Conservative, Labour, etc. We might look at one part of being Scotland, but we're also looking at the UK as a whole here. That think about who the major parties are in Westminster right now, especially as we're coming up to a general election. So you've got to think about what this all means for everything. It does open up this industry quite heavily in regards to legislation and future legislation. I want to see how this pans out, see who lands up not getting grouse licenses or muirburn licenses and whatever. But this next year, we have deer management nature restoration orders going to come in, and further powers will be given. And it will come to a point where these estates will be forced under legislation to cull more deer. So grouse Grouse estates are not really bothered about that because they don't. A lot of grouse estates don't really care about their deer. To be honest, they'd rather just shoot them all and keep them off the moor. But this affects the wider, just the wider community as a whole. We have to be careful with everything we do right now. We have to be careful with in the sporting community of how we go forward commercially, because if you're making money from it and it's not conservation based, then you're up for a lot of scrutiny and you're going to have a lot of enemies. Just bear that in mind. Anyway, this is a little bit of a long one. So I am going to leave you. Love yous and leave yous. Catch you for another week. Catch my Arc and Optics reviews. I've got to finish the 3 to 12 this week. I did a bit on the IR, changing the IR over, which was really fascinating, the difference. The actual optic is fantastic. I am speaking to Toby at Armaclow's, going to get a HIC micro thermal. Apparently it's on my way. I'm not going to tell you which one. And I am going to do a bit of a review on that, which is going to be excellent. And if there's any scopes or that you want me to have a look at for that you are interested in, give us a shout. Just put it in the comments below. I have got quite a lot of reviews coming out. I've got a lot of things going on. I've got more stalking stuff. I've even got some wild boar. I'm going to do a little compilation of all the things that I've seen in the last week. Probably do that after I do this, just to keep these interesting. So I want your opinion on the wild boar side of things. I'll be interested in what you think about them. And I'll catch you next week. Happy hunting. Stay safe.